Hey everybody, this is Christopher Small with CMS Law Firm. We are back here again, live on Facebook, or if you're watching this later on YouTube or something else, later somewhere else. But today I wanted to talk about something that is actually just a plan that I was working on today, and I thought it was something that might be interesting to some of you. And this is how to keep separate property separate when we're trust planning. So to give you a perfect example, this can happen actually in blended families or in non-blended families. So you can just be married with kids, everybody's all together, but you've got one spouse that brought something into the family unit and they want to keep it separate for whatever reason. Sometimes this is simply just generational property that is to be passed down and kept sort of in the family. Sometimes it's a house that was owned before marriage. So it can be any number of things. But the point is that the one spouse, and both spouses are obviously okay with this and want this to happen, they want to make sure that when they die, the property that we're talking about, the separate property, the property that's not community property, is handled in a way that the spouse that owns the property actually wants it to be handled. And you can do this in a couple different ways, but the first important thing to remember is that in most cases, if your estate planning attorney is doing things right, they are setting up the trust so that any property that moves into the trust that is separate property retains its character as separate property. That way, if you ever move it back out of the trust, it's still separate property, just like it was when you moved it in. This is pretty easy to do. It's quite easy to do when it's like real estate or an identifiable bank account or something like that, because it just is what it is. Right? It's not being commingled, there's nothing going on. It's not like when it moves into the trust, it gets mixed up with everything else. That doesn't happen. So you have to worry about it. But typically, a good trust provision a good trust will have a provision that says everything that comes in retains its character on its way in and retains its character on its way out. And then all you need to do is make sure that you think about what you want to do with this property in a couple of different scenarios. Scenario number one is if the property owner dies first. So let's say you're a husband and a wife, and the wife owns a house. And she owned this house before they came into the marriage, and she keeps the house as a rental or for something, vacation home, I don't know, anything. And wants to make sure that the house gets passed down to her kids no matter what, okay? She dies first, okay? And what you would do is, within this trust, what you would say is, at the time that she passes away, this house is actually carved out and put into a separate trust. While the husband is alive, while the surviving spouse is alive, they can use the house, they can do whatever they want with the house, right? They can live in the house or whatever. But when the surviving spouse dies, then this house goes to the kids, which means the surviving spouse can't sell it, the surviving spouse can't do anything else with it, give it to anybody else. What happens? It's sort of set up beforehand so that if the spouse with the separate property dies first, they can sort of go into the next world or wherever we go, knowing that the way that they wanted to have everything set up is going to actually play out over time. Okay. The second scenario is when the spouse with a separate property dies second, and that scenario is pretty simple because they're still alive. They can do whatever they want with the property. They can move it around, they can give it away to other people, they can do whatever they want, and then they can also ensure that when they die, it just goes to who they want, okay? So there are some considerations to make. If you have separate property, make sure that when you are talking to your estate planning attorney that you let them know about it, because it's something that they're going to want to make sure that they take care of. But the actual taking care of it part isn't terribly difficult if you know what you're doing. It's sort of like an auto mechanic changing the oil. If I was changing the oil, it'd be terrible. But when an auto mechanic changes it, they do it great because they do it all the time. Same with me in estate planning, and probably with other estate planning attorneys in estate planning as well. Okay, so that's it. I want to hop on here real quick, sort of just drop some knowledge. I like doing these every day. Things come up every day that are fun to talk about, and so I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, hit the like button. Share it. If you know somebody that's been thinking about this or been talking about this or is in this situation and they might benefit from this information, please share it. Let them know. And by the way, if you need help if you want to talk to somebody, I offer free consultations or free strategy sessions is what I call them, because we're strategizing. We're getting some strategery in here. To get that, to sign up for that, or to book an appointment, all you have to do is go to cmslawfirm.com, just like the name of the page or whatever you're looking at, /strategy session. All one word, strategy session. Pretty straightforward. It'll take you to a page where you can just pick a time that works for you. Just pops up on my calendar, and when that time comes, we talk. We can do it in person or on the phone, whatever you want. Okay? So that's it. Again, I hope you enjoyed this. And I'm Christopher Small with CMS Law Firm, and I'm sure I'll see you here again tomorrow.